welcome to our second Kim Cooks Books. We're glad that you joined us today. Today we're going to make a bun cake in our Instant Pot. And today we're going to talk about the author Joanne Fluke. Joanne Fluke has 24 books out now. So she's a very popular author. And she's, in looking up information about her, she's 77 years old. And it was quite interesting going through what was on the internet about her, that she still does a lot of morning shows. She still does a lot of cooking on the morning shows. She's really quite personable. A lot of times she's asked a lot of questions. And one of the questions she's always asked is, what made you start writing cozy mysteries? And she always says she started out as a suspense writer, writing suspense mysteries. And she always says that she was afraid of what she wrote. She couldn't sleep at night. So she had to stop writing that type of thing. And what she really wanted to do was to publish a cookbook. So she went to her publisher, and the publisher was, no, we're not going to do a cookbook. So she said, okay, what if I write some mysteries, and can I put recipes in the mysteries? And the publisher said, well, okay. And that's kind of how she got started, is in doing that. I got a kick out of everything that this author has done. She has a lot of life experience. She's been a school teacher. She's been a psychologist. She was a musician. She was an assistant to a private investigator. She was a legal secretary, a short order cook. She was a florist's assistant, a caterer and party planner, a computer consultant, and a production of a TV quiz show. So maybe she's taken a lot of her life experiences and writing about it in her books. They're sometimes quite amusing. Of course, she's also a mother, a wife, and a homemaker. She's herself is from a small town. She describes the small town as the biggest scandal is when there's undergarments hanging on a clothesline, or the biggest traffic jam in her town is when there's two cars stuck behind a tractor. So she's familiar with small towns, and she writes in her books about a place called Lake Eden. Her main character is Hannah Swinson, and Hannah, she is probably, I feel like she's probably late 20s, early 30s. She has red hair, kind of unmanageable red hair. She's a little plump. She often says the wrong thing and puts her foot in her mouth. But she always ends up finding dead bodies, and her mother doesn't like that at all. Lisa is her assistant in her bakery. There's a little bit of romance in the books. Her romance has to do with Ross Barton, who is an old high school friend of hers. And then there's the detective Mike Kingston. And I think that something evolves in that in some of the later books. She has sisters, Andrea and Michelle. And she has Moishi the cat. And that cat is loud and stubborn. Now, the book that I took a recipe from today, which I'm going to talk about what the book's about a little bit later, but we're doing a devil's food cake, and I've taken the recipe and I have adapted it to being able to use an Instant Pot. And instead of a regular cake, I'm going to do a bun cake. The one thing that Instant Pots do is the cake is a little more dense, so it's perfect for an Instant Pot. So on the Instant Pot, like I said, I'm going to do a bundt cake. Now I have a silicone bundt cake right here, and that just happens to fit in my 6-quart Instant Pot. Now you can get bundt cakes pans that are made especially for your Instant Pot, but they're much smaller. So I found this and it worked real well. So we're going to get started, and I am going to embellish a regular Devil's Food Cake box mix. And we're going to doctor it up and make the best cake you've ever had. So we're going to take 1 box of Devil's Food Cake. And to that, we're going to add a 3.9 ounce instant chocolate pudding. And we need to make sure that it's instant pudding. Okay. Now to that, we're going to add 2 eggs. I've got them right here. There's 1. And we've got 2. Okay, we have a 1/2 cup of oil. And I use just a regular canola oil. I'm sure you could use whichever oil that you prefer. And then we've got a 1/2 cup of water. So that's going to be our cake right here. So I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to get it started. Okay. Okay, so we've mixed up our mix, and as you can see, it's kind of a stiff looking mixture. It's not as runny or as thin as a regular cake batter would be. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it in my bundt pan. Make sure that you've got your, whichever bundt pan that you're using, make sure that you use a lot of your spray. You don't want it to stick. You want it to be able to come out of the pan and look pretty. And I'm just going to add this in here. Pretty thick. But like I said, your bundt pans are just a little bit more dense than a regular cake would be. Okay, so we have that in our bundt pan. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put it in our Instant Pot. Okay, so we've got all of our cake that is put in our bundt pan. And I always, on my Instant Pot, I always put it in saute first, just to get it hot. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. Go ahead and cancel that for now. And as we talked about before, we always want to use a little bit of water. That's what makes the pressure build up in an Instant Pot. Okay, now if I was using this pan, okay, I would want to use a grate or something for it to set on, because you don't want it set in the water. But also, you want to be able to pull that cake out without hurting yourself or without burning yourself. So I purchased this sling. Okay, and what it is it fits right down in there. When the dish is done, you just pull that out. But it's a little bit hard to use with silicone against silicone. But you can always make your own without spending any money. Just take some aluminum foil, and you can make your own sling. Just take a sheet and make a little sling like so. And you can just put that in your Instant Pot, put your dish in. When you put your top on, you can just fold that in, and it'll be easy to lift out. Now my silicone pan fits, or happens to just fit around the edge. So I'm not going to put, maybe I will go ahead and use that sling to help it come out. There we go. Now we're going to put that in here like so. Now whenever you do a bundt cake, One of the things when you do a cake in an Instant Pot is you don't want all that moisture getting in the cake mix itself. So what I always do is, on the top of this, I'm going to line the pot with paper towels, some pretty good ones. I'm using napkins because I forgot my paper towels. And what that's going to do is, as this cooks and as the moisture builds up, these napkins are going to absorb all that water, so the cake won't be watery in any way. So I'm going to fold those over, get my pot going. I'm going to use a manual pressure, and I'm going to set it for 26 minutes. There we go. And we're just going to let that cook until it's ready, and then we'll see how it turned out. Okay, so we've had our cake baking in there, our cooking, and what we're going to do after the time is done, you can see that the time is about done, is you're going to let it do a natural release, which is like don't touch anything, for about 15 minutes. And then after the 15 minutes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our vent. Yep, I think I'll use a little. There we go. I can smell the chocolate. Okay, so we've went ahead, we released the pressure out of the pot, and it's safe to go ahead and take our top off. And the first thing we're going to do is these napkins, they've absorbed all the water. And it doesn't look like anything's all wet or anything, so they did their job. And then I've got my sling. I can just pull this right out. See how that works? And we want to let that cool probably for about 15 minutes before we invert it onto a plate. Okay, so we've taken our cake out and we have let it cool for, we need to, for about 15 minutes. Now we're going to invert it onto the plate. It's probably a little bit easier to do if you don't have a silicone one, but aha! Set this aside, and there you go. And to finish it off, we're just going to make a little bit of a glaze. We're going to use a little bit of powdered sugar. It's just your regular glaze. We're going to use a little bit of milk, and I mixed vanilla in this, so I didn't have to have two separate containers. So we're going to add a little bit of vanilla. And on your glaze, you don't want to get it too runny. Just a touch of lemon for flavor. And this isn't going to make it lemon flavored. It's just going to bring the flavor out a little bit. And we're going to mix that up. And we might have to add a little bit of water, which is okay. Better to have to add a little bit than to have to add more sugar. So add a little bit of water. Looks about right. So we want to mix it until it's nice and smooth. What we're going to do is we're going to take our glaze. I've got it mixed up here. And the cake is just a little bit warm. And we've got it thick enough that it's going to cover the top. It's going to run down the sides a little bit. But we don't want it all to end up on the plate beneath. We want some of it to stay on the top. And I like a lot. right, isn't that pretty? And then the last thing you can do is I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of Christmas sprinkles on there. If you enjoyed this video, we have a little bit more to do, but be sure and give us a thumbs up, and be sure and remember the North Las Vegas Library District when you want to check out a book. Our recipe today was featured in Joanne Fluke's book, Devil's Food Cake Murder. It's a really fun read. The book is about, once again, set in Lake Eden, small town. We've got Hannah Swinson as the main character. And the reverend of their local church is taking a vacation, and him and his wife are going to be out of town, and they bring in Matthew Walters, or Reverend Walters, as to take his place. And Hannah goes over to check on Reverend Walters, or to say hello, and finds Reverend Walters' face in a pan of devil's food cake. Apparently the only person, or the only thing that saw what had happened, was a parrot that lives in the rectory. And so you got to find out, is the parrot going to be able to tell everybody what happened, or what are they going to find out? I'm not going to tell you, so you'll read this book. Joanne Fluke, like I said, she has a total of, you know what, I think I said 26, but her 27th book is coming out in February of 21. So be sure and catch that. But also, she's got on the Hallmark Channel, they're turning all of her books into a movie. And the movie is called Murder, She Baked. That's how much people have enjoyed her books. Now the movie star is, the star is Allison Sweeney as Hannah, and then Cameron Matheson as Detective Mike. So if you get a chance, I have not seen those yet, but I do know that they're out there. So she's got 26 books published. They're a lot of fun. As you can see, she's got some Christmas titles. So get away from everything that's going on and read yourself a good book. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Oh, I'm going to try this. We'll see how it turned out. Very good. And as you can see, the consistency is like a cake. It's awesome.